So, after 2 decades of people in this country getting smarter every year, it turns out for the very first time, our IQs are actually decreasing. And it's not proven, but the hypothesis is that there's just way too many disruptions, way too many distractions. The good news is that artificial intelligence is here to save us. The challenge is, do we actually have the attention spans to fully leverage AI? Well, look, I don't know a lot about a lot, but I have a ton of experience with very short attention spans. So today, we've got the ADHD guide to artificial intelligence. Let's dive in.
3, 2, 1, go!
There's something called the Flynn effect. And what they've realized is that for many decades in a row, the IQs in America have actually been increasing. And that's because we've got better education, we've got better education technology, despite all the criticism, we've got better nutrition, we've got a better environment. So each year, basically, we're getting smarter. But for the very first time, it turns out our IQs are decreasing. And the hypothesis is that it's just we've got so many digital distractions. We're consuming so much information. You might have heard this data point. People say that we now consume the equivalent of 20 newspapers every single day. It's a nice catchphrase, but the actual research coming out of UCSD is this. We consume 174 newspapers worth of content every single day. And when you think about social media, I was blown away by this. The average person uses social media 2 hours every single day. Many teens use social media 5 hours a day. We look at a post every 2 to 6 seconds. Thumb, flip, thumb, flip, thumb, flip. That means every single day, we're looking at somewhere between 1,500 and 4,000 posts per day. Leave alone everything that we need to study at work, the Netflix and Hulu shows that we're watching. We are just inundated with information. And it's absolutely hindering our ability to stay focused. And that's the hypothesis on why our IQs are decreasing. And all of this is hitting at the exact time that artificial intelligence is growing well beyond exponentially. The amount of time it's taken us to adopt artificial intelligence in our everyday lives absolutely dwarfs Facebook, Instagram, Google, TikTok. The vast majority of people are not only using AI, but are integrating it into their daily lives and into their shopping lives. The question for us is, how do we fully leverage artificial intelligence? If we all have some sort of form of ADHD, how do we actually use artificial intelligence? How do we deep dive in, or at least maximize the leverage that we get out of artificial intelligence when we're all suffering from our own decreased intelligence? And I think the best way for me to explain how I use AI is probably through a recent case study. I talked about this one a little bit the other day in a podcast with Jordan, but let me deep dive in a little bit, and then I'm going to zoom out and give you some of the lessons in chronological order for using AI. So the deep dive on it is one of the world's largest consumer packaged goods companies came to us. And they've been working with two of the largest agencies in the world, giants in creative, giants in media, and they weren't getting any of the insights that they needed. And if you can't get great differentiated insights, well, then everything is off from there, right? Insights are the foundation of great strategy, and great strategy is the foundation of great creative, and great creative is the foundation of great results. What we did is we put together a team of a handful of people, about 5 or 6 different people. I'm about 20% of the team, and I think the team would have their own experiences with AI. At the end of the day, our entire team came up with ballpark 10 different insights. I only came up with about 2, maybe 3 of them. And here's where my conversation was. I had 120 different prompts. I provided 42,000 words. That's about the size of a small book. And we swapped 400 bullet points. At the end of the day, all I had was 2 to 3 insights with a nice tight sentence and 2 to 3 data points to support each insight. 120 different prompts, 42,000 words, 400 bullet points. In all of that, I could do in a very short period of time because that's when I'm able to match my ADHD, my very short attention span, with the power of artificial intelligence. Now, Jordan, co-host of the show, not making it today, he's got a totally different style. He doesn't suffer like I do. He's got a much longer attention span. He actually uses deep research in ChatGPT because it's not using inference memory, and the data that he gets is much more scientific and much more accurate. I can't do it that way because every time you use deep research, it pauses. Sometimes it pauses for 5 minutes, sometimes it pauses for 15 minutes, and you can put that in the background and accomplish a different task. But that doesn't work for me in my attention span. I would rather query, find the errors along the way and continue to query like crazy, drinking coffee, getting hyperactive, finding all the data, forgetting things along the way, and sometimes being like, hey, ChatGPT, I'm sorry, but I can't remember that point that you made higher up in the conversation. I don't have the attention span to zoom up and find it. Can you bring that back down deeper in the conversation? My point is this: AI is not the end-all, be-all solution. It is not going to solve all of the challenges that you have, particularly in this day and age where we have way too short attention spans and we've all got some sort of digitally enabled ADHD. We can't just query it, and we can't just get great at prompt engineering. We have to think about it as a conversation. And that's probably the summary statement that I would have about how to maximize the effectiveness of artificial intelligence is don't think of it as a tool where you prompt engineer. Think of it as a tool where you have an in-depth conversation and you customize that style of your conversation to your own personal needs. Now, the truth is, I don't think anybody could just dive on in and start using artificial intelligence effectively if you don't have certain skills, certain backgrounds, a certain history in your industry, if you don't build up skills outside of just using artificial intelligence. Let me take you through about 8 key pieces of advice that I have that follow in chronological order for how you can maximize the value that you get out of artificial intelligence. The first one is this: master your craft. We can all go into artificial intelligence and get good at a variety of things. I literally use it for all my medical needs before and after I go to a doctor, but that doesn't make me qualified to be a doctor by any stretch of the imagination. And the same thing is true in our industry of marketing and advertising. We have to master our craft. We have to, outside of whatever it is, the 8 to 10 hours of work that we put in every single day, we have to read the trade magazines, read the case studies, read the boring data, create our own sort of longitudinal studies in our own mind where we go back to those case studies and see the results a couple of years later so we can see the patterns. We need to step outside of the trade magazines and read business magazines like Wall Street Journal and Fortune so that we can open up the aperture and understand the bigger business issues. We have to get world class at our own discipline, in this example, marketing and advertising, if we want to maximize the value that we get out of artificial intelligence. The second thing in chronological order is we need to integrate artificial intelligence into every aspect of our lives. I recently went on vacation with my family. I recently sold a bicycle. I recently bought some golf clubs. I recently had shoulder surgery. Every single time I've got something either big or small in my life, I use artificial intelligence. It makes me much better at figuring out, how do I prompt engineer? How do I have a conversation? How do I discern what are the real results versus what's hallucinating? How can I use it efficiently? How can I use it effectively? Like many of you, I spend a lot of time in the car. So I take my LLM, ChatGPT, I put it into audio mode, and I will have conversations for hours with ChatGPT. Sometimes it's just about very personal things that I think are fun. Sometimes it's about non-business, personal things that are really important to me. But the bottom line is, if we want to get great at any discipline in life, you need reps, you need repetitions, you need to build that muscle memory. So if we don't integrate artificial intelligence, arguably the most powerful technology in the history of humankind, if we don't integrate it into our lives holistically and completely, when we do get to the moments where we need to use it for business, we're not going to have the optimal skill set. So surround yourself and weave artificial intelligence into every aspect of your life if you want to maximize the way that you use it at work. The third thing is you need to have an AI tool set. I am not a designer. I'm not a videographer. I'm not a video editor. I'm not a creative. I'm not a copywriter. I'm much more focused in on research and strategy and insights in business development. So ChatGPT is the primary tool for me, but I've got a variety of other tools that surround me every day. I've got Otter, which I can use to record calls, create transcriptions. I can query it. It can help me write briefs. I've got Granola, which is very similar. It won't record everything, but it'll give me real-time transcriptions, real-time summaries. With somebody with an awful attention span like me, it's got the ability to help me stay focused. I don't get distracted. I don't forget anything, and it'll summarize and give me the action items. And of course, I'm using ChatGPT for all my deep dives, but other people are using Adobe and Claude and 72 other tools I haven't even thought of. Find what your discipline is and find a variety of tools that carry you through your holistic experience at work. And if you step back and look at your entire team, there's probably going to be at least a dozen different tools that you weave in and out of every single element of your operations, from ideation all the way through optimization. One single tool will not get you by. There is no staple style easy button where you just outsource everything to AI. The next thing, and maybe there's a more clinical term for it than this, is I call it feed your LLM. So for me, I create a lot of content. I've written a couple books. I write white papers. We have this podcast. We create social content. We've got an entire team developing case studies, our own agency value proposition, our reasons to believe, our elevator pitch. All of this content I can feed into my LLM. My ChatGPT knows close to everything about my company. It literally knows close to everything about me personally, and I want it that way. Think about Amazon, right? When you go up on Amazon, you don't want it to treat you like any old schmuck. You want it to know the products that you purchase every single day. So when you're up there, it can help feed the products that you want, whether you're a golfer, whether you got a bad back, whatever the case may be. It seems fairly innocuous, but extrapolate that 1,000-fold. And that's the power of feeding these LLMs. So we've got a positioning that we call the moments that matter. We've got a viewpoint about journey-based marketing. We think that the world needs empowerment, not just interruptions. We think that empowerment comes in the form of inspiration, education, and information, right? I can take those few bullet points and extend that over thousands and thousands and thousands of words, hours and hours and hours of video, and I can feed it into my LLM. Sometimes I'll just be in the car. I'll use the other tool that I mentioned, Otter, and I'll just record it. Maybe it's going to be a white paper. Maybe it's just a thought that's on my mind. Sometimes it's a conversation that I have with Jordan. I'll just record it. Then I can take those recordings and I can export it and I can feed it into ChatGPT. My ChatGPT is basically a QUESTUS GPT. It looks nothing like yours, and yours should look nothing like mine. Take all of the information and feed it in. And then when you need to ask it questions and query it and create things, it's feeding off that incredible knowledge base that you've built. I don't know if that's available in the free version. I don't know if there are limitations in the free version. I think the paid version is $20 a month. I think you're absolutely insane if you're not paying $20 a month. To my aforementioned point, it's probably the most powerful technology in the history of humankind. It's better than Netflix. It's better than Hulu. It's better than your ESPN subscription. Like, if you don't have the $20, find it somewhere. drink a little bit less, have a few less burgers. I can't imagine a stronger return on investment than what you get with a $20 investment. The next one is you go through the chronology of my advice, returns back to what I was saying earlier. Think of it as conversations, not queries, right? We've really fallen into this query world. We query Google. We've been now doing that for something like 25 years. Here's my question. Google, get me the answer, and now I'll seek out my path from there. And then we hear all about prompt engineering. You get really good at creating prompts. And yes, you need to get great at prompt engineering. That goes back to one of my earlier points, which is you have to build up the skill set. You have to get great at prompt engineering. One of the most powerful things about it is it doesn't lose focus. Sometimes when I'm communicating with the team, and I know brevity is the most important thing in the world. So sometimes I'm trying to make a point with the team, and they're human beings. I can watch them after 30 or 45 seconds. Their concentration is starting to fade. So I'm in the back of my mind like, holy shit, I'm making sense right now. I need them to understand this knowledge base I've built over 30 years, but I can also see that cognitively they're starting to fade. So that's a challenge that we all face every day, but we don't have that with artificial intelligence. You can make prompts that are 100 words. You can make prompts that are 300 words. You can make a prompt that's 800 words. You can get all of your information out there, get great at that prompt engineering. But my bigger point is this, which is don't think of it as one question. Don't think of it as one query. Don't think of it as one great prompt that you engineer. Think of it as a conversation. It's going to pull out 10 points, deep dive into 6, point out the challenges. You have these conversations. A lot of the time, I find errors. I don't know if it's hallucinating or making a mistake, whatever the terminology is, but I'll be like, hey, man, like you're off on this. Look at the mistake that you've made. And it has a personality that's wired into it. So, oh, I'm sorry. You're right, Jeff. I noticed that I have that error also. Let me fix it. Maybe that helps. Sometimes it's irrelevant and you have to go back over to bullet point 6 instead of bullet point 9. Per my point about that case study, you can literally have dozens, if not hundreds, of questions that go back and forth as you're digging deeper and deeper and deeper, trying to find that one critical nugget of information. And I think that feeds nicely into the next point, which is scrutinize the results. These things are not perfectly accurate by any stretch. Sometimes they hallucinate, and sometimes they're just pulling up shitty data. To my point earlier, it found 32% of people behaved a certain way. First of all, 32% doesn't mean that much. Like, what is that? Like, 99% means a lot. 1% means a lot. 32% is an ambiguous point. It doesn't mean anything. But more importantly, as I mentioned earlier, it didn't come from a trusted source, and that trusted source didn't have any rigorous research behind the data point. And sometimes it just straight up hallucinates. I asked my son the other day, he went to the doctor. I'm like, have you checked ChatGPT to double check what you heard from the doctor? That's something I would undoubtedly do. He was like, dude, are you insane? Like, I ask it basic math questions and it hallucinates all day long. It's giving me bad data. So he doesn't want to use it that way. For me, it's more about scrutinizing the data. Don't take anything at face value, particularly as it relates to work, because the stuff you do at work is absolutely paramount. Buy the wrong golf clubs, not a big deal. Sell your bicycle at the wrong price, not a big deal. Screw up at work, huge deal. Scrutinize the data that you get. The next one is we need to merge artificial intelligence with human intelligence, AI with HI. The vast majority of people on this planet, the vast majority of organizations on this planet have the same access to the technologies that you have access to. They have access to ChatGPT, they have access to Otter and Granola and all the other tools out there. You're not going to gain a competitive advantage just by being great at artificial intelligence. We need to blend it with human intelligence because that has always produced the competitive advantage. If you look at Apple, Amazon, Nike, NVIDIA, all these different companies around the world that have dominated the competition, it's never been based purely on the idea or purely based upon the technology. It's all about maximizing human intelligence, finding the best people, and then creating synergies in the team. The same thing is true with artificial intelligence. We need to blend AI with HI. Going back to the example with the CPG company, I was able to find some pretty interesting information and I was able to come up with some pretty interesting insights. They absolutely would have fallen dead flat. Nobody would have cared until we blended it with Emily's human intelligence, our incredible creative director, who is able to take these ideas and put it into a language that feels much more consumer facing and much more colloquial, and then go back and forth between the AI and the HI to blend that creative approach with a data driven approach. Here's what I think we're going to get out of artificial intelligence 2x. Everything is going to double and it's going to double quickly. And what I mean by that mathematically is we are going to be able to reduce our investment in time. We're going to invest our overall timelines by approximately 50%. Every single aspect of how we compete as a team and as an organization will have artificial intelligence woven into it. The vast majority of companies will have a tool set and will use AI throughout every aspect of developing whatever widget they develop, and that will all happen within the next 12 months. And the effect of that is we will double our efficiency. We will reduce our timelines and our time investment in our resources by approximately 50%. Is that deadly accurate? No, that is my hypothesis, but I'm seeing it happen already. My point is this. There's not going to be, like I mentioned earlier, this staple style easy button. And anyone who says that they can take an entire component of whatever you do, whether it's project management, creative development, media planning, and you can outsource all of it to AI, take that meeting every time, and you will see every time they are wildly exaggerating. And if every company is doing that, again, how do you create that competitive advantage? It comes down to blending that AI with the HI. And then here's my final point. To fully leverage artificial intelligence, in a world where all of us are suffering from some form of ADHD fueled by digital disruptions and distractions, where the competition has access to the exact same technologies, where the world is moving at an exponential rate, the most important thing is building our culture. Not just the traditional forms of culture, but a culture that fully embraces and adapts artificial intelligence. Culture has always been fairly ambiguous, and I think a lot of people have looked at it as how do we make everybody happy and fun and comfortable, and we've all seen what Zappos did back in the day. I think that stuff is awesome. Work should be fun the vast majority of time. You should feel inspired the vast majority of time. But if we really try to define what great culture is all about, it's putting everybody in position to do their best work. The brands that are focused on ping pong and foosball and bars, it's proven not to work. You have to take every resource that you invest, every second and every dollar, and point it towards putting everybody on the team in position to do their best work. And that is how that translates to artificial intelligence, is making sure that everybody on the team has the tools, the technology, and the training to use the appropriate artificial intelligence for their specific discipline. As you go through onboarding and insights, data analysis, brand strategy, connection strategy, channel strategy, concept development, concept creation, creative development, media buying, media planning, optimization, reporting, rinse and repeat all the way back to the beginning. There's a set of tools that we can all use. And if we create a culture rooted in let's save money, let's create fear, let's cut jobs, let's replace people instead of augmenting people, well, that culture is broken and we're not going to be able to compete in the modern environment. We need to find the people, the processes, the tools, and the training to put people in position to maximize the way that they use artificial intelligence, defending their jobs and advancing their careers, not trying to replace them. So in summary, the 8 key steps that I came up with are 1, master your craft. 2, integrate AI into every aspect of your life. 3, build an AI tool set. 4, feed your own LLM. 5, think about conversations, not just queries. 6, scrutinize the data. 7, merge artificial intelligence with human intelligence. And 8, finally, build a culture rooted in putting everybody in position to do their best work. I don't know about you, but I find these podcasts are a lot more fun when I've got my best friend and business partner, Jordan Berg, with me. He'll be back soon. Thanks for joining me on Brand Champions. Have a great day.
Brand Champions is a QUESTUS production. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and review wherever you tune in. You can submit mailbag questions to brandchampions@questus.com.